Hey cats, it's your midsole man Ed Maximus Bud here with a running shoe review today for the hearts and minds. The Brooks Hyperion Max 2 in hand and on foot, of course. How does it shape up in that very oversubscribed world of plus 40mm stack? Let's find out. Thanks for tuning in, people, to the channel. It is always appreciated. Do hit that subscribe button if you've yet to do so. It's free of charge, don't you know? Give us a thumbs up like as well. It helps to spread the good word. And also drop us a comment down below to help fight the YouTube algorithm. You can follow me on Instagram and Strava too in the links down below in the description, and drop us a super thanks or perhaps become a member to help the channel out on a more ad hoc basis. Dankeschön. This is a shoe sent to me by the good folks over at Brooks, but they're not paying me to make this video. This good looking shoe, the Hyperion Max 2, coming in at 311 grams for my UK size 11, US size 12. That's bang on 11 ounces. Quite a wide shoe, this one in the forefoot, around about 12 centimeters here, so it's a little bit above average, and 9.1 centimeters in the heel, so slightly narrower there, but it doesn't really feel all that narrow underfoot. Now, I've got approximately 43mm of heel stack back here, and there's about 38mm up front, so I've got an approximate 5mm drop, which is pretty much around what Brooks state on their website. I would suggest though that this is no squash fest. The DNA flash material here is certainly more on the responsive and firm side. If you're after a pillow, then probably not the shoe for you. It's nowhere near something like Zoom X or perhaps Nitro Elite. It's certainly firmer than something like the fuel cell material in New Balance shoes. I have noted there's a couple of websites out there stating that there's two different foams here. It could be the case. I think it's pretty close, to be honest with you. They both come in at around about a short A27 when I've tested them, which is smack bang average really across all the shoes I've ever tested. Interestingly, the rubber on the outsole here does appear to be some different compounds. Up here, this is about 52 Shore A, so this sort of more coarse sticky rubber, and on the lateral side of the heel I'm measuring something more towards 70, so I think Brooks have done that deliberately, perhaps to enhance the durability of the Hyperion Max 2 over time. And if you're thinking about buying the shoe, I would suggest it is true to size. You don't need to go up a half or down a half, just go with your typical running shoe size. Alright, that's enough stats for you. Let's get into the review. Upper-wise, I really like the way that Brooks have designed this one. The tongue sort of hugs your foot. You have to sort of shoehorn yourself into it, sort of pulls you in a little bit like the seat on a roller coaster or something. Quite elastic, though very fitting. It does quite a lot of the donkey work actually of holding your foot in place. The laces are just the icing on the cake. I do like those notched perforated laces that we've got here. Seen those in other shoes like from On and from something like the Vaporfly 3, for example, or even some of the Asics models, but Brooks are going with it here and it does really work. You can kind of dial in the fit. Feels a little bit like a seat belt. They've seen us stay put pretty well without any messing about. The toe box itself is nicely proportioned here. There's quite a bit of height here, quite a bit of width. It's very comfortable, yet still conforming. Doesn't feel too stretchy here either, so it's a good sort of balance. Now, the one thing I'm not entirely sure about is this elf-like protrusion here in the heel. Reminds me a little bit of the old Pegasus 35, remember that one? Just feels like they could have gotten rid of this and made it a little bit more sleek around the back. I mean, it does pull the ankle area away from the Achilles, which is nice. I didn't get any heel slip or anything, but just feels as if it's not really doing an awful lot and adding some weight. It does look kind of interesting and cool. I suppose if you want a pull tab, then you could use that as the pull tab. There's some standard reinforcement here around the eyelets, and then a double eyelet at the end if you want to do a runner's knot, and that was my preferred method of tying the shoes. Seem to get good results with that every time. I do like this slightly more muted Brooks logo here, because the shoe is kind of this sort of bluey grey. It doesn't sort of stand out. It's not too in your face. And we do have some overlays here. They're not too thick or anything. They're quite flexible. And a standard heel counter around the back of the shoe. It's not all that flexible at all. Overall, very sort of comfortable model. Quite like the upper. And I think having this grey version of the shoe is quite good with the winter coming. Doesn't seem to get too grubby too quickly. Though I do like the upper. I think it's the main culprit for weight this time round. I'll talk a little bit more about that when I mentioned the midsole. I just think they could perhaps refine it down a little bit and remove some of this padding, get it down under 300 grams for me. That would just make the shoe a little bit more exciting, I suppose. I'll give it a 2.7 out of 3 for the upper after my initial runs. Midsole now. So midsole wise, this is quite an odd beast, really. I came into this one thinking that it might be quite like the previous Hyperion Max, but it's altogether its own shoe. A little bit more controlling of the stride, I suppose. That's probably down to that plastic or nylon plate that they've put here between the two sections of the midsole. And you've got these sort of guiding rails, these midsole walls here around both sides of the shoe. So there is a hint of stability here about the Hyperion Max 2. This is more responsive stuff, certainly. It strangely reminds me a little bit of the original Adizero Adios Pro. A blockier midsole here and that very specific forefoot curve. And there's also perhaps a hint of the Boston 12 about this one as well. I think if you enjoy those shoes, you'll no doubt enjoy this one. Similar kind of vibe and pace range. I'd suggest perhaps the Boston's a little bit more up for it, feels slightly more propulsive. This one wants you to sort of land midfoot and engage with that rocker. The Boston was a little bit more wild. So I think this is perhaps a slightly more stability based version of that shoe. I do wonder what the shoe would be like without these midsole walls here, if they could get rid of those and again reduce the weight down a little bit, and that makes the shoe a little bit more suited to tempo runs for me rather than anything involving all-out speed. Does feel like there's quite a bit of shoe here. Well, I'm getting up to like 10k or even 5k effort. Feels like a shoe I want to run those marathon or half marathon miles in. You do get a nice controlled landing from that DNA Flash material here. It quickly stabilizes your stride and gets you up onto the forefoot. It was really great as well on hills. I found it to be, in fact, quite advantageous when you're running up some elevation. You can adopt a nice steady pace with this one, but keeping the heart rate nice and low as well. Sometimes in the very squashy and flexible models, it feels as if you're almost fighting against the shoe, whereas because this one's a little bit more firm, I suppose, and resilient, it just feels like you're gliding along. Quite a big jump between this version and the last version of the shoe. I had about 245 grams or 8.7 ounces in the Hyperion Max, so 65 grams extra is no joke. But like I said, you got to look at this shoe as being a new model, really. So it's one that I think people who found the Boston 12 too narrow could get some use out of. Perhaps if you didn't enjoy the odd lacing on that Adidas shoe, then this one's a lot more traditional. Perhaps if you found the Puma Deviate Nitro 3 a little bit too narrow in the toe box on the lateral side, then this one could work well for you. I think the plate position actually between the two shoes is very similar. So a real surprise here in the Hyperion Max 2. It's a shoe I'm certainly going to be using in my rotation. Really seems to work for me at those half marathon pace miles, and I think you guys could enjoy it out there as well if you want something a little bit more nimble that is plated without the overtly unstable feel in the heel. I'm going to give it a 2.7 out of 3 for the midsole so far. Outsole wise, I'm really enjoying the grip that we've got on offer here. Really is quite sticky up front. Really works if you're running on road. Nice and tacky, but you know, in a good way. I think you'll get some pretty good durability out of these DAPs. There's some good depth here to the cutouts, so I did find some of the smaller cutouts do take in grit and gravel very easily. You got to prise them out with the old jeweler's screwdriver again, and I think the cutout that we've got here does promote a little bit more squash to the foam, though of course you might pick up a few rocks. Definitely avoid gravel areas with any of these shoes because it's easy to get a rock stuck in here. On wet pavements and road, I found the shoe worked pretty well, though I would avoid running in anything where you've got some mud patches and things. I literally went surfing in this one earlier, just hit one and ended up sliding, and yeah, it made me pull the pace back a little bit after that. Do like the texture to the rubber. I don't feel like it's going to lose that anytime soon either. But certainly with the thickness of rubber that we've got here is very much a training option. So I don't see there's going to be too many people racing in this one. But Brooks have got other models for that. Nice to actually test some shoes out in wet conditions. It's been bone dry for ages and ages. And this one performed pretty well out there on the initial few runs. I'll give it a 2.8 out of 3 for the outsole. So far, not an awful lot to dislike there. Talking value now, it represents an interesting choice really. It's a little bit more expensive than the Boston 12 from Adidas, with a similar sort of ride on offer, though the more substantial use of upper materials here does mean that the Adidas shoe feels a little bit more nimble. I think that one just is a little bit more explosive when you want to turn up the pace. Just felt a little bit like this one's locked into a slightly more niche area. If you like your shoes responsive, you like a little bit more of a firm feel, then I think you'll really enjoy this one, but you don't have that sort of avert, squashy step-in feel that you get in a lot of the other super shoes, something like the SC Trainer 3 or like the Puma Mag Max Nitro. Both of those are pillows compared to this. Maybe if you race in something like the Saucony Endorphin Elite, then this type of shoe might really work. I think that's probably why the FOD runner Andy really liked this one. It's a well put together shoe, I have to say. There's no dodgy glue marks, sort of sloppy stitching or anything. It does feel like a premium shoe, and I guess it's in that premium price point where it is. I think if you want a nylon plated shoe that isn't the Boston 12, maybe the Endorphin Speed 4 still got a little bit more of an exciting feel about it, though both of those options might be a little bit too squashy for some. So slightly limited versatility on this one, but still a really nice quality shoe. I'll give it a 2.7 out of 3 for value after my initial runs. So if I've totaled the scores up correctly for the Brooks Hyperion Max 2, that is a 10.9 out of 12. I think if we see a third version of this shoe, or like a second one really, where it's a little bit lighter, they've just refined it somewhat, taken away some of the things that they don't need, it could be an absolute banger for steady effort. Yeah, less upper, minus the midsole walls, maybe a thinner spreading of rubber on the outsole could expand the pace range somewhat. Are you going to be picking up the Brooks Hyperion Max 2? Have you been running in it already? Let me know your thoughts and opinions on this one down in the comments. A quick musical interlude for you. Neil Young has recently released his Archive Volume 3. There's some bizarre stuff on there. This does cover a period of his 80s output that is particularly weird. It's like they were just sort of throwing mud at the wall and seeing what sticks, and actually not a lot of it stuck at all. One such track is Hey Hey My My, but performed with the band Devo. I've absolutely no idea what's going on here. It kind of sounds like a Friday afternoon meet-up where they've just heard the song and Neil Young's kind of playing with them. There's this weird stunted vocal delivery, strange computer sounds, and Neil Young just wailing away on Old Black, his Les Paul. It really is very, very strange. It does make me wonder whether doing this session with Devo gave him the idea to sort of produce some of these tracks in this electronic fashion himself, maybe. I don't know whether this came before or after, but either way, it is definitely worth a listen if you're into Neil Young's like country output. Go and check this out with Devo. It is truly remarkable. I think it's about 9 or 10 minutes long as well. They seem to be having a whale of a time. They're having a real knees up. Go and check it out. Hey Hey My My, Neil Young and Devo. Thanks for tuning in, people. Hope you enjoyed today's review. Hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up like. My name's Eddbud, and I'll be seeing you